Hello, BookTube. It's Wednesday, and that would ordinarily mean Epic Comic Book Wednesday, where Michael K. Vaughan and I talk about comic books for an audience of about 3 or 4 people. But as you all know, he has temporarily stepped away from his BookTube channel. I asked him if I could continue the comic book theme on Wednesday. He gave his blessing, but I don't feel like doing a full-dress Epic Comic Book Wednesday video. That seems like more of something we do together. So instead, I'm going to do another episode where I just go through my long boxes and pick out a fistful of comics and just randomly free associate about them. I did this once before, and a lot of you comic book fans seem to like it. Of course, you non-comic book fans will not know what I mean. Long boxes are long cardboard boxes that are perfectly proportioned for individual issue comics, for you to stack them in there and finger your way through them. Comic book fans tend to accumulate these things. They have dozens or even hundreds. I know a couple of comic book fans who have thousands of long boxes, and they're carefully labeled and they know what's in them, and all the comics are boarded and bagged, so you put a cardboard behind the comic and you put it in a plastic bag for archival purposes, all that sort of thing. I have never done that. None of my comics are boarded or bagged. I've adopted long boxes in the last 30 years, mainly because they're so convenient. Although if you have a lot of anything, it's not convenient anymore. Before that, I had a steamer trunk. Not a footlocker, but a huge steamer trunk that had the cardboard drop set on the top for the stuff you want to get at right away. Then you take that off, and it's 4 feet deep. And I kept comics in there. I would just throw them in there. They accumulated in that steamer trunk forever and ever. Oh my God, for long decades. And then eventually I domesticated that collection into long boxes, and it's not domesticated enough. There's no reason for me to have as many individual comics as I have, especially considering that I have collections and e-comics of almost everything. And no sentimental attachment to the physical ones, despite the fact that they go back a long way with me. So I'm looking at them with a squinty eye, but still, I did that for this Comic Book Wednesday. I went through one of my long boxes and just grabbed a fistful of comics. So I thought we'd go through them at random. I haven't looked at them, except the top one, which I can't help but see, which is the first issue of Marvel Comics' Kull the Conqueror, with a wraparound Joe Kubert cover there. Gorgeous John Buscema artwork here. I think this is Roy Thomas as well, I would assume. No. Oh, wow. No, the script is by Bruce Jones and April Campbell. Okay, I don't know that at all. This is the story of one of Robert E. Howard's great non-Conan characters, King Kull of Atlantis, who was an orphan boy and had all sorts of adventures on the road. He is, in many ways, Conan that we meet later in life. Conan whose adventures are going to be set during his kingship rather than during his itinerant wandering. The tiger is his totem animal, which makes this cover all the more heart-wrenching. I got this because I was happy for Marvel to be doing this. I always have had a soft spot for Kull. And this is a terrific issue, but it's major retconning. It's a major retcon of the Kull story, because it introduces a woman named Irena, who also has a deep mystical connection with tigers, and turns out in the course of the story to be Kull's long-lost sister. As you can see, Irena does not take orders from men, and also she commands an army of woman warriors who are capable of transforming into tigers. Look at that beautiful artwork. I've read and reread this issue a few times. I think that the Kull comic book dropped off in quality as it went along. I think Marvel makes 2 hardcover omnibuses of their entire stuff with Kull, but you'd have to be Michael K. Vaughan to want those anthologies. A lot of stuff in there is not good. But this first issue is wonderful. Okay, then we have another first issue. This is Namor, #1. Oh my. Okay, from the early 2000s. This was a weird series. I don't know how long it lasted. I don't know if it's ever been collected. This is issue #1 of Namor. I got it for the artwork. This has Salvador Larroca artwork. And it also is a fascinating retcon, because it takes place in the 1920s. Look at this beautiful artwork. It takes place in the 1920s, and we meet a teenage Prince Namor, who would go on in the late 1930s and 1940s to be the infamous Submariner, the scourge of the seven seas. Here, we just get to know his Atlantis. But he does visit the surface world. He meets his father's kinfolk in the 1920s when he's just a boy. I thought it had amazing potential, but I think I bought like 6 or 7 issues of this, so they must all be in long boxes here somewhere, but only for the Salvador Larroca artwork. I thought it had amazing potential that did not go anywhere. It did not happen. It's a retcon because the first appearance of the Submariner by Bill Everett shows us clearly when he meets surface people for the first time. And it's not when he was a boy, coming ashore on Coney Island or whatever. Also, another bit of retconning on Salvador Larroca's part. The Submariner does not have gill slits on his neck. Simple as that. I know you want him to, but he doesn't. He doesn't have them. He oxygenates water in some other way. but I still liked it. I wonder if it's collected. I wonder if Marvel ever does that. I'm much more drawn in comics to artwork than I am to scripting. And I love Salvador Larroca's artwork, so I get him basically wherever he appears. Okay, all right, we have another issue of The Watchmen. This is issue number 3 of the classic series that would go on to become one of the seminal graphic novels in all of comic books. And I found issue 1, 2, and 3 at a place that was not my normal comic shop. If I remember correctly, it was just a pit stop on the way to Cape Cod. And all 3 of them were on a metal spinner rack, and they'd seen better days, and no one seemed to be paying attention to them. I asked the guy at the counter, why do you have all 3 of these on here? He said, I put out what's new, and if I get sick of looking at something or if it's falling apart, I get off it. So issues 1, 2, and 3 were there, and I got them all, and I read them. Issue 1, I wasn't quite sure. I thought it was excellently written, beautifully drawn. This is Dave Gibbons' artwork. There on the back you have blood slowly dripping towards the clock as it ticks closer and closer to midnight. That's an effect, a gradual effect in The Watchmen that you won't get in the graphic novel. I read issue number 1 and thought, okay, this is really well done. I'm not sure that I like it. I don't like dystopian futures. I don't like nihilistic comics. I don't like anti-heroism, where not only are there no heroes, but heroism itself is mocked. I don't like any of that, and it looks like Alan Moore is getting ready to serve me up a massive platter of that, but this is well done. And then I read issue number 2, and I thought, okay, that's definitely what this is going to be, but this is enthralling. And it was issue number 3 that got me. It was issue number 3 that completely hooked me, so that I was eagerly waiting. I went to, when we got back from the Cape, I went to my comic shop, my guy, and said, you've got to get me the rest of these. Oh my God, this is so good. And I can't remember off the top of my head why this issue did it. I know this issue did. This issue features the furtherance of a plot. Someone is plotting against the superheroes of the world of the Watchmen. Now, the superheroes in the world of the Watchmen are all masked mystery men and women. They're all ordinary people in costumes, except for one. There's one genuine super being. Dr. Manhattan. Or Dr. Dr. Manhattan. He was an ordinary person. He wasn't an ordinary human being, but he was fatally blown apart in a reactor and reconstituted himself as a being who is outside of time, massive amounts of energy. He's basically the Spectre, the old DC comic character of the Spectre. He's not really human anymore. He's slightly anchored to the human world, but as you can see, he's blue. He has telekinesis and subatomic power and whatnot. He's basically a god. Nothing like any of the other mystery heroes. And in this issue, he is going to a television station to give an interview. And we're meeting all of the older superheroes, these superheroes who once were heroes. They're not anymore. The world has turned against them. And 2 of them are Silk Spectre and Night Owl. And as Dr. Manhattan is in the studio being interviewed, they find themselves confronted by a gang of armed thugs. And when you're reading these first 3 issues, you think, oh God, all right, well, they're just ordinary people. They're not like Dr. Manhattan. So they're going to be destroyed here. And you think that's what's coming when they prepare themselves. Night Owl takes his glasses off and puts them away. But that doesn't happen. Instead, they destroy the armed gang in off-color panels while Dr. Manhattan is being taunted by a reporter who is basically telling him that the radiation that he gives off has caused cancer in the people that he loves and has killed most of them. And Dr. Manhattan finally cracks under the pressure and says, I leave me alone. And when the press and the studio doesn't, he says, I said, leave me alone, and they all vanish. They all disappear. They're all transported somewhere else. But it's too much for Dr. Manhattan to be suspected of that sort of thing. He goes back to the Los Alamos, to the New Mexico desert where the accident happened that gave him creation. Here we get a little bit of comic book history, because we have a full frontal Dr. Manhattan in a normal 4-color comic book. That had never happened before. Made brief headlines, but the point is that Dr. Manhattan doesn't want to be here anymore. So he just vanishes. He goes to Mars. And we see him there, just sort of trailing along the surface of Mars, while Earth seems teetering on the brink of nuclear catastrophe. And that, I think, the combination there of knowing that the human heroes, there's more to the human heroes than we saw, and also knowing there's less to Dr. Manhattan than we saw. He's not quite as inhuman as he seems. It's very much possible for someone to lay a guilt trip on him, as my generation used to put it. I think that did it. I don't know, maybe it was just that the story would have done it anyway, but I was absolutely hooked after this issue. But here, we have to push along, because this is going to be an hour. Fantastic. Okay, well, this is Nexus. I don't know how many of you remember Nexus. This is from 1988, when all the world made sense. This is what Nexus kept coming and going. There were individual standalone Kino issues. Then there were numbered issues. Then the numbering stopped when the money ran out. Then it started up again. The Nexus print history is a nightmare on almost pulp magazine levels of complexity. Sooner or later, someone will sort it all out. This is the story of Horatio Hellpop, who is Nexus. He is the murderer of mass murderers. He has a vast supporting character cast. It's Mike Byrne doing the writing and Steve Rude doing the artwork. The artwork is incredible. Steve Rude also painted a lot of these covers. I have almost everything from Nexus. I have almost all of it. I love it so much. Let's see if we can get a really good panel here that will show you what I'm talking about. Of course, I love Steve Rude's artwork anyway. The thing is, the weird thing about... Okay, no, this isn't going to work. The weird thing about Nexus, when you look back on it, is that not a lot happens in any one issue. It's just terrific stuff. It is a direct homage to Kirby, but very much its own thing. None of my Nexus comics are in order, a numerical order, or publication order, anything like that. They're a mess. I really need to go through them. But then again, I need to go through my long boxes just in general. Although, these individual Nexus issues are a good example of what I would keep. I was talking about this with Mike when he was here. We were going over Nexus's print history. I don't think he's as big a Nexus fan as I am. I don't think anybody is anymore. Maybe Mike Byrne. But there was a while there where I think Dark Horse was coming out with Nexus hardcovers, reprinting everything that they'd ever done in order, scrupulously, in nice hardcovers. I kick myself that I don't have those on a whole shelf. I saw them coming to my comic shop and I ignored them. And I shouldn't have done that. God knows how collectible they are now. It's probably extremely expensive to get that whole set. I wish I had that whole set. But in the meantime, I need to take better care of these and maybe go through all of these comics. Oh, okay. All right. Well, speaking of Dark Horse, this is seen better days, but I have many copies of this. This is issue number 0 of Dark Horse's run on Conan. Writing by Kurt Busiek, artwork by Cary Nord. This is issue number 0. It's smaller than the other issues that they did, and all it's meant to do is introduce Conan to the readers. Dark Horse's run on Conan was really, really good. And this introduces the readers to Conan by introducing them through the method of the Numidian Chronicles. When every Robert E. Howard story starts, we get an excerpt from the Numidian Chronicles, No, O Prince, where the writer of the Chronicles is telling some anonymous prince about Conan the Barbarian. He existed in the past. Here's who he was. And in this issue, Cary Nord's artwork is just so great. We get a bored prince being toured through New Kingdoms, and he comes across a toppled old statue of Conan. The vizier who's advising him says, "It's just a name. It's nobody. These natives elevated everybody who was, yes, perhaps some local chieftain or minor king, a bloody-handed brute, long dead, nothing to concern." And the prince says, "No, there's something different about this one. There's something different about this one. I want to know more about him. Research him for me." And the vizier does, and when it comes time, weeks later, for him to disgorge his researches, we get an amazingly orchestrated moment. The prince says, "What, with all the wonders of those cheerless, soul-grinding territories to occupy me? Hardly. Bring us distraction, please, or have you failed in your task?" The vizier, who's much more than he appears, he is an old enemy of ours, says, "No, lord, but there are masses of scrolls to hunt through. Those called Nemedians had a passion for record-keeping, and sorting the historical chronicles from tedious accounts of grain bought and sold is taking on with it," the prince says. "Of course, great one. It is still superstitious nonsense, but in keeping with your wishes, I had the scribes prepare an account. This is based on what we have uncovered about this Conan thus far." And then, amazingly, the vizier starts to recite, "Know, O prince." If you're a longtime Conan fan, seeing that moment is incredible. Between the years when the oceans drank Atlantis and the gleaming cities and the years of the rise of the sons of Ares, there was an age undreamed of, when shining kingdoms lay spread across the world like blue mantles beneath the stars. Numidia, Ophir, Bithynia, Hyperborea. Zamora with its dark-haired women and towers of spider-haunted mystery. Zingara with its chivalry. Koth that bordered on the pastoral lands of Shem. Stygia with its shadow-guarded tombs. Hyrcania whose riders wore steel and silk and gold. But the proudest kingdom in the world was Aquilonia, reigning supreme in the dreaming west. Hither came Conan the Cimmerian. Black-haired, sullen-eyed, sword in hand. Look at that. It is just incredible. A thief, a reaver, a slayer, with gigantic melancholies and gigantic mirth, to tread the jeweled thrones of earth under his sandaled feet. This issue, the issue number 0, basically serves to introduce the reader to Conan. It's wonderful, just wonderfully done. Okay, then we move back to the 70s, where nothing made sense. This is Doctor Strange. There was a long run on Doctor Strange that was who wrote this? Steve Englehart. Okay, but it was drawn by Gene Colan and inked by Tom Palmer, and that is a great pairing. If you can get that pairing in artwork, they did a lot of work on Tomb of Dracula. This is Doctor Strange number 13, where Doctor Strange faces off against Eternity, who is the sum total of all existence. In the end of the previous issue, Earth is destroyed. Only Doctor Strange survives. And it's a big story. Admittedly, it's a big story. He goes into the Nightmare realm. He finds his old archenemy Nightmare, who was his first opponent in Strange Tales. And he also finds Eternity. And Eternity is sleeping. He is dark. But Doctor Strange wakes him up, and I love that Gene Colan gives Eternity that bewildered facial expression that everybody has when they first wake up. And then he starts to become himself again. And Doctor Strange contends with him, wants him to redo the injustice of Earth being destroyed. And Eternity is about to smack him like a bug when the Ancient One intervenes, Doctor Strange's old mentor, who died and became one with Eternity. He intervenes. And they decide, look at this great artwork. Look at that. That is incredible. They decide that although Eternity cannot undo the past, he can remake the Earth. So he remakes it exactly the same as it was. Everything exactly the same, except for Doctor Strange. Well, there is no second Doctor Strange. He gets to just go back into his old life. Now it continues without Mordo, without death. It continues as the first Earth would, for it is in all respects identical. No mortal knows of his first self's demise. To them, there is still but one reality. With one exception, I left no second Doctor Strange. And now, farewell, Mystic. Well done. And the final panel is just Doctor Strange in his Sanctum Sanctorum in Greenwich Village. He is back in his study, in his sanctum, on Earth. He sits there a very long time, coming down. And we're told that Englehart wrote this on Halloween in 1977. Or 1975, sorry, 1 year before the bicentennial. This was a great run on Doctor Strange. I had my doubts when Doctor Strange #1 came out, but it quickly won me over, and I stuck around with Doctor Strange for a long time. There are probably 50 issues in these long boxes because Gene Colan kept regularly being the artist, and that's all I cared about. All right, well, another example of caring only about the artwork. I guess that's going to be a theme here. This is DC's run on Tarzan. This is just one issue. I have all of these issues, but these also need to be collected. They really do. These also, there were Dark Horse hardcovers of these as well. I wish I'd got them. Who knew? I mean, those Dark Horse Nexus volumes, those Dark Horse Tarzan volumes, they were at the dawn of what looked to be an open-ended reprint culture era. I assumed that there would be plenty of reprints. I assumed that that DC Comics, or whoever owns the franchise to Tarzan, would do the equivalent of a paperback, full-color, epic collection of these issues, and they haven't. They haven't done that. I don't understand it. And the reason why they would collect this is because this is Joe Kubert artwork. One of the greatest Tarzan artists of them all. Joe Kubert, every issue of the Joe Kubert Tarzan was a symphony. The symphony of just beautiful visuals. Even, I don't know that Michael K. Vaughan would agree with me here, but even better work than he did on Hawkman. This is the pinnacle of Joe Kubert's comic book artwork. His rendition of Tarzan is immediately recognizable. It's immediately iconic. I mean, look at that. This is just absolutely gorgeous. Why is this not reprinted accessibly? Who knows what the Tarzan Dark Horse hardcover volumes retail for? I have no idea. I should look these things up on eBay just to see, but I don't want to tempt myself. Although, in a way, it would be a good use of what I'm sure is an exorbitant amount of money, because it's clear that Dark Horse or DC or whoever owns the rights to Tarzan or whoever owns the rights to Nexus are not going to reprint these things the way they should. I should have many options to choose from. Instead, I have none. So maybe, buying hardcovers of Nexus and Tarzan is a good idea. But anyway, one of these, I have them all. Okay. Oh boy, this has seen better days, hasn't it? Oh my, well, this is Superman. I have, God only knows how many hundreds of issues of Superman and tons and tons of issues of Superboy, going back to the mid-1950s, going back to when someone might have been a little boy buying comics at the dry goods store. This is Superman number 279. This would have attracted me because it has a Nick Cardy cover. Nick Cardy is a great comic book artist and does great covers. As far as I know, never collected, never anthologized. This is a follow-up. There was a Superman issue where Superman teams up with Batgirl. And fans loved it. People wrote in regularly to Superman, to the letters page, and fans loved it. For some reason, they love that chemistry. They liked it almost as much as they like it when Superman teams up with Batman. So the writer, I think this is Carrie Bates, Elliot Maggin, brought them together again. Just, if fans wrote in and said, hey, we love this team up, then bring Batgirl back to Superman. So they did. This is Menace of the Energy Blackmailers. It's got great artwork by Kurt Swan. Starts off with Superman and Batman, where they are dealing with smugglers off the coast. And it's awesome. Batman is fighting these smugglers, and they say, let's see here. He says, don't leave, scum. I've got a fist for you. And one of them says, the captain says, you can't do this. It ain't legal. And he says, we're outside the 3-mile legal limit. And Batman says, I'm not interested so much in law as I am in justice. Without this oil, the entire city of Gotham would sludge to a halt. Besides, whether or not you were once outside the 3-mile limit will soon be quite academic because Superman is lifting the whole ship. Perfect little signal of Superman and Batman team up. but the issue belongs to Batgirl. This is terrific. It didn't quite have the magic of the first team up where Batgirl and Superman team up in Washington, but it was still wonderful. Okay, then we have more Superman. This is from the John Byrne era of Superman. DC Comics, for reasons passing understanding, except maybe that there was, in fact, that much Michelob in the world, decided to give the creative reins of Superman entirely over to fan favorite artist and writer John Byrne. You can do whatever you want within limits. You can't kill any major characters. You can't add, any weird characters. You have to stick to the canon of Superman, but otherwise you can do whatever you want, including depowering Superman. You can make him a lot less powerful. Because for some reason, whether it's Cary Bates or Elliot Maggin or John Byrne or the later writers, for some reason, writers always come along to Superman and think, well, the problem here, the thing that's stopping me from telling really good stories about this character is that he's too powerful. And what an editor ought to do when a writer comes up to him and says that is, get out of my office. You're telling me you're a bad writer, so get out of my office. But instead, it is routinely done. And so for a long time, when John Byrne was running Superman, we had this depowered Superman who had these weird... There were weird details added to him, all kinds of weird details added to him. And at one point, there's an interdimensional crisis, and Superman confronts Superboy. But it's not Superman when he was a boy, because this version of Superman was never Superboy. The John Byrne Superman only puts on his costume as an adult. This is my Superboy. This is the Superboy from the Julie Schwartz era, from before John Byrne mucked around with the character. This is the Adventures of Superman when he was a boy. And not only is that weird for this time period, but this Superboy is much more powerful than this Superman. This Superboy is God-tier level power, just as Superman should be. So he's facing off against this Superman. I wonder if there's a good visual I could show you. This is a typical John Byrne panel from not just Action Comics, but his run on Superman as well. This is typically what you get. Look at this. It's 5,000 words of boring dialogue with no background whatsoever. It's the laziest thing that a writer-artist could do. Just, look at this. Barely anything. It just... But... see if there's a... Superboy smacks Superman into the stratosphere because he's much more powerful than this Superman. And I got this because I wondered when my Superboy would ever make appearances again. This came out in, I think, the 1990s. Is that right? One of you would probably know right off the top of your head. No, in 1987. This came out in 1987. And even then, I was thinking, oh my, is my Superboy going to be... He's retconned out of existence now. He doesn't exist. That was the first thing I noticed about the post-Crisis on Infinite Earths retcon of DC continuity. The very first thing I noticed, before I even wondered what was happening to my beloved Legion of Superheroes, the first thing I noticed in the John Byrne reboot of Superman is that there was never any Superboy. So what about those 70 issues that I have in Longboxes? What about my favorite DC character who's just gone? Wasn't redone. He's just gone. So I started to wonder how often am I going to see my Superboy again? And I was right to wonder that because DC Comics keeps the property, the trademark of Superboy, but it's not my Superboy, and it probably never will be again. And I think for a bunch of legal reasons, they don't even reprint the huge runs that they did of Superboy and Adventure Comics. They don't do it. They don't have a current comic book in which a teenage Clark Kent growing up in the middle of the 20th century in the American Midwest fights crime. They don't have that. And they never will have that again. But they also don't anthologize. There are no omnibus editions of My Superboy with Crypto, the Superdog. There are no collections of those. Every once in a while, a single issue will show up in a collection of other Superboys, whether it's the clone Superboy or Clark Kent's son Superboy or whoever. But that whole vast history that I love so much is gone. So I was right to wonder about that. What have we got here? Oh, okay. This is the Legion of Superheroes, the aforementioned Legion of Superheroes. This is this is from an earlier era, the early 2000s. Or no, this is from the 90s. I feel certain this was from the 90s. Is that right? No, 1987. This was a great run on the Legion where they got Paul Levitz, one of the greatest Legion writers, to come back and write. This is a story, this particular cover ties into an event that was across all of continuity in DC Comics, the Manhunters, these nefarious metal androids who infiltrated their way into all of continuity. Talk about retconning. There was a huge amount of retconning that was done for this dumb storyline about the Manhunters. And it had to extend into the future as well. Why that would be true, I have no idea. But it had to be in every DC comic. That was the editorial dictate from on high. So some member of the Legion of Superheroes had to be revealed to have always been a Manhunter. And it was Laurel Kent, who was a fan favorite character. She was only brought back over and over again because she was a fan favorite character. She was a fan favorite character who was an applicant to the Legion of Superheroes. She was in the Academy. She was a great, however many great descendant of Superman, and the only power of his that she had was invulnerability. And fans liked her a lot. But she was sacrificed on the altar of this dumb Manhunter story. I should find all of my Legion comics from however many different incarnations and put them in some sort of order, but I don't. I don't. All right, then we have Conan the Barbarian #1, Death on the Black Coast. This was wonderful, absolutely wonderful. It culminates the Conan teaming up with Baylit, there's a story in Robert E. Howard, The Queen of the Black Coast. Roy Thomas, when he was doing the Conan the Barbarian 4-color comic book, decided why not do an extended run, dozens of issues where Baylit is essentially the co-star in Conan's comic, where he is her lover and they are a team leading a team of pirates. Every Conan fan who was reading those issues, I was eagerly buying Conan at this time. Every Conan fan knew what was coming. If you've read the story, then you know what's coming. Roy Thomas just teased it out forever and ever, gave Baylit a huge amount of backstory and resonance and character. But it was always going to end this way. No one respects Robert E. Howard canon more than Roy Thomas. This story finds the crew of the Corsair and the captain and whatnot. They've made landfall in a weird, God-forsaken place where there's rumored to be enormous amounts of treasure, and they do find treasure. And Baylit is captivated by it. And to an extent that Conan has never seen before. He wanders off into the forest and has an extended vision about the people who used to live here. Massively advanced, winged species that had advanced technology and whatnot, but eventually the world catches up with them. Volcanoes erupt, monsters attack them. They degenerate until finally there's only one left, and he is no longer an angelic being. He's a winged demon, a monster. We're watching that vision as Conan is having it, and we know that madness is going to overtake the crew, and that being is the reason for it. Conan knows that something is wrong. He rushes back to the ship, and to his horror, he finds Baylit hanging from the yardarm by some of the jewels that she was admiring. He takes her down. He armors himself. He knows that an assault is coming. And it does. It takes the form at first of hyenas that come out of the forest in great legions. He faces off against them, but they aren't the real enemy. The real enemy is this winged creature, and the whole temple crashes to rubble, and Conan is pinned under a gigantic slab of rock, and he can't reach his sword as this thing is advancing on him. He remembers something that Baylit said to him earlier. She said to him, were I still in death and you fighting for your life, I would come back from the abyss to aid you. And he thought it was just so much talk, and he thinks that he's going to die. He thinks that this thing is going to kill him. When suddenly, there's a flash of red. She's wearing the sheet he draped her body in. Suddenly, something is happening there in the moonlight, and she attacks this creature. He calls out, but look what Buscema does with the artwork. There's nothing there. She's not there. We get this, but we get this as well. This creature is suddenly being attacked by something. giving Conan time to free himself. Then the creature's dead. We're told the oldest race in the world is extinct. And Beilid is right back where she was. Conan sets the ship on fire, sets it off. And you would think this would be, that's epic, that's an epic visual. You'd think that would be how we would end things. But Roy Thomas and John Buscema have something else in mind, which is Conan crying. Just beautifully done. Just absolutely beautifully done. Love this issue. Absolutely love it. Yeah, all right, okay. Well, goodness gracious. All right, we have Nexus again. This is from First Comics. So this is Nexus 18 and 19. Again, with painted covers by Steve Rude. By this point, there's Judah Maccabee. By this point, Nexus's supporting cast was so popular they could easily, carry a cover on their own. The supporting cast is just a marvel here. We have another issue of Nexus, another painted cover. These are wonderful. I really need to do something with them. Okay. Then we have Marvels. The great series, the great limited series Marvels by Kurt Busiek, drawn by Alex Ross, that we've seen on this channel many, many times. I love it. I absolutely love it. It tells the whole history of Marvel Comics. And it was announced in the trade publications that Busiek and Ross were going to do an epilogue. And they were going to do a fully painted epilogue that would this will obviously be in every collection of Marvels that's done from now on. I don't know, and I won't look, because this is revolting. This was at the height of Marvel Comics hating its own fans and telling them that they are racist and bigots. And this is beautifully done. X-Men fans will recognize this scene right away. This is the X-Men at Rockefeller Center. This is from the Chris Claremont, Dave Cockrum run, where the new team first encounters the mutant hunting robots, the Sentinels. So when you look at this, that you're going to get a redo. You're going to get beautiful Alex Ross visuals of them redoing that famous encounter. And let me give you a good example here. Yes, our everyman narrator, Phil Sheldon, will be there at Rockefeller Center. He will be in the crowd to watch this happen. And it's gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. Look at that. There's Banshee shredding his civilian clothes in order to... and you might think, well, okay, what's wrong then? Why would you object to this? If it's beautifully done and it's redoing an X-Men sequence that you really love, why would you hate this? Because it is the writer caught up in the editorial fad of Marvel at the time, telling the reader that they have been bigoted all along, that they are bad people all along. Keep in mind, this isn't a war propaganda 1940s comic that's being redone for modern sensibilities. This is something that almost everyone buying this issue could remember buying on the stands. So this is not your grandparents were horrible people. This is you were horrible and didn't know it, and we are gently castigating you. Because when Banshee addresses the crowd, he's warning people. He recognizes what the Sentinels are. The new X-Men don't, but he does. When he addresses the crowd, he says, and if the Sentinels are hunting mutants again, Scott and Jean are going to need all the help they can get. Moira, you and Storm find Nightcrawler and Colossus. Warn them, because if the Sentinels are back... and Phil Sheldon says, I didn't hear the rest. It was drowned out in his sonic scream. It's beautiful artwork, but that is not a quote from Chris Claremont's issue. That's a cleaned up quote from Chris Claremont's issue. In Claremont's original issue, Banshee is talking with what Claremont writes as a kind of stereotypical Irish brogue. So ye be and whatnot. And Busiek changes it. Why? Because he is quietly telling you that Claremont was being a bigot to write it that way. This is the exact same panel from a comic that isn't even 50 years old. This is the exact same sequence. At the exact same moment, with the character saying the exact same things he said in that original issue, which is in those Longboxes somewhere. So the only possible reason you would change it would be to make it more politically acceptable. Revolting. Absolutely revolting. So I read this issue, and, of course I love Alex Ross's artwork, but I will never buy a Marvel's issue that says not only were, 1940s Sub-Mariner comics offhandedly racist against Japanese people, but even the people who were buying the Claremont run on the X-Men were racist. No. Thank you very much. On top of which, I might add, as long as I'm on my soapbox here, on top of which I might add, if you're going to pull that kind of crap, that kind of political correctness, that kind of blue-haired social justice warrior crap, kindly don't do it on behalf of the delicate sensibilities of the Irish. Okay? We can take it. We don't mind at all. We can take it. So if you're going to do that, do it to somebody who's offended. It'll never be the Irish. Okay? All right? Anyway, we were being offensive long before most of you even realized what it was. Anyway, let's push on here. Oh my God, these videos get long, don't they? All right, this is the official handbook of the Marvel Universe, number 9, which is a fold-out cover there. Nothing really to write home about. This is something I mentioned before. It was an encyclopedia thing that Marvel did all year long. I bought them, and I really liked them, but they did so much better with the deluxe edition. This is not. See, this is just the official handbook of the Marvel Universe. Then they did this over. This is alphabetical, going through all of their characters alphabetically and listing their origin, every detail that we know about them, and very specifically their powers. How much can they lift? How far can they jump? How fast can they fly? Here you've got Rom, and also Quicksilver and the Scarlet Witch. But the details are skimpy compared to what you get in the deluxe edition. Like, for instance, where can we find? Let's skip Rom, shall we? let's skip Rom. He has a whole entry of his own. I don't think he does. If Marvel were to do this now, I don't think Marvel has the franchise rights to Rom, or maybe they do. Let's find somebody. Let's find a character that you will know. Are there any characters here that you will know? All right, well, She-Hulk. From the leg warmer era, the Flashdance era. See, here is She-Hulk has only 1 page as an entry. In the deluxe edition, she has 2. And here we get her. We're told about her superpowers, and that's all it is. In the deluxe edition, you get a whole section on the character's superpowers, but you also get a separate section just on their strength level. I guess because a lot of fans wanted to know that. So here we're told She-Hulk is 6'7" and weighs 650 pounds. She possesses vast superhuman strength derived from a body-wide mutagenic change triggered by a transfusion of gamma-irradiated blood of the Hulk. She-Hulk's homologous ancestry of the Hulk enabled her body to transform without direct exposure to gamma radiation that affected the Hulk's body. Because the catalyst for her transformation is indirect, her altered form is not nearly as powerful as the Hulk's. As with the Hulk, an increase in the level of epinephrine, known as adrenaline, due to stress, triggers a chemical extra-physical process that adds in some unknown way 540 pounds of bone, marrow, tissue to her body. The total transformation takes from 15 seconds to as long as 3 minutes, determined by the degree of stimulation. She-Hulk can lift, that is, press, about 50 tons. Her powerful leg muscles enable her to leap straight up to a height of 600 feet or jump a distance of 1,000 feet. Because she retains her normal intellect, the She-Hulk is incapable of primal rages that trigger increased levels of strength and bodily efficiency in the Hulk. So that is the original version, but I like the deluxe version much better. I have all of both somewhere. Okay, then we have the Avengers. This is Avengers number 300, where a new team is introduced. We have Thor. We have a lame-ass character called Gilgamesh, who dresses like a bull. But also, fascinatingly, for a little bit of time in this era of the Avengers, the Fantastic Four was disbanded. And Mr. Fantastic, Reed Richards, and Sue Richards joined the team. They joined the Avengers. And I remember when I first saw that, I think this issue is the issue where that happens, right? I think they all band together at a hospital bed at the end. Is that right? Let me see. Do I remember? Yes, they do. When I first read this issue, I thought, all right, well, that's a kind of a lame team, but surely there's dramatic potential here, right? Because Reed Richards is used to leading his own team. How's he going to take orders from Captain America? And, you know, to give him credit, who's the writer on this? Okay, well, this issue is written by Walter Simonson, but I don't think he kept it up. And he does do a little of that, but not nearly as much. This is such a fascinating era. I wanted 100 issues, and I wanted it to explore all of that. Because it's not just that Reed Richards wouldn't sit well with being ordered around as a member of a team. Surely he would turn Avengers Mansion into a science tech mecca and start to test and analyze all of his teammates. I would love to have seen scenes like that. Bean is going nuts behind me. Sorry about that. Oh, my God. All right, let's wrap this up. I have a lot more here, but let's just wrap this up. Let's just do 2 more here. Okay, this is Thor number 126. Really, Thor number 1. This is when Thor's comic book changed over from Journey into Mystery to Thor, and they just kept the numbering. And this is an epic storyline where Thor fights Hercules and then teams up with him. They fight in the New York subway system. They fight in an abandoned subway lot. And it's all going well until Odin intervenes and saps Thor's power with a beam from space there. And then all of a sudden it's no contest at all. But this was I was a diehard fan when this was coming out. This has not only Thor, but a backup with Tales of Asgard. Another misprint there where Thor has no pants on. That was often the case. Colorists never knew to do that. So you often get misprints where he doesn't have any pants on. I have ebooks of this. I have collections of this. Why I have the original issue, I guess, maybe sentiment. And then we'll finish up with this. I mentioned yesterday for Victober, Rudyard Kipling's The Jungle Books. This was a great little series that Eclipse Comics did of P. Craig Russell adapting stories from the Jungle Books. This is Red Dog, which is there is a collection of there we go. There's Mowgli and the Rock Python Ka. This is a great epic story from the Jungle Books where a rival band of dogs attacks the jungle. They attack the Seone wolf pack, and everyone needs to band together. P. Craig Russell is absolutely terrific drawing this sort of stuff. I think it was Eclipse Comics that did a paperback collection of these. Pretty sure it was them. Actually, can I reach it from here? No. No, it's... Oh, yes. Right. Here's the collection of all of those with the French flaps. Is it Eclipse that did this? No. No, it's not. It's NMB. Who's that? Who's NMB? Okay, I don't know. I don't know who does this. Not off the top. I'm not seeing it. Oh, here we go. Nantir, Bial, and Minoshin. I have no idea who this is. This was just at the comic shop, and I was overjoyed to see it, so I grabbed it. But anyway, that's plenty long enough. Good Lord, that's plenty long. There are plenty more long boxes to go. So I will stop this video for now. We will reconvene next Wednesday. Sorry to go on. I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.